Canada's changing mission in the fight against ISIS. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. So are we in a combat mission against ISIS or not? Well, that's a difficult question to answer. It's one that mainly centers around semantics, just like it did with the previous government, the Harper Conservatives. Well, it's the same with Trudeau and the Liberals. I'll explain that in a minute, but make no mistake about it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau followed through on his campaign pledge to end the bombing. Canada's 6 CF-18 fighter jets will be coming home on February 22nd.
It is important to understand that while airstrike operations can be very useful to achieve short-term military and territorial gains, they do not on their own achieve long-term stability for local communities. Canadians learned this lesson firsthand during a very difficult decade in Afghanistan, where our forces became expert military trainers, renowned around the world. Recognizing this expertise, the Canadian Armed Forces will now be allocating more military resources to training Iraqi security forces.
So what will Canada be doing? Well, we'll be doing what's called an advise and assist mission. We will be training mainly Kurdish fighters in the northeast region of Iraq. Now, this is an advise and assist mission. It doesn't mean that they're going to be taking the fight to ISIS on the front lines, but that doesn't mean that the trainers that we're sending over won't be engaged in firefights. In fact, the officials at the briefing admitted that Canada is facing an increased risk due to these changes, tripling our training mission. So is it combat or is it not? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said clearly in response to a question, no, it's not.
This is an advise and assist and equip mission that our trainers will be engaged in. And as I said many times throughout the campaign in my commitment to Canadians, this is a non-combat mission.
Well, Trudeau says it's not a combat mission, but his Chief of Defence Staff, General Jonathan Vance, says Canadian soldiers will be engaged in the fight against ISIS. We'll be painting targets for both defensive and offensive missions that are carried out by the Kurds. We will be arming the Kurds. We will be training the Kurds. We will at times fight alongside them. So is it a combat mission or is it not? Listen to how General Vance parsed words when asked directly about this.
The Prime Minister has clearly described it as non-combat. I know there's a penchant out there for people to try and parse the words. In my view, it's a non-combat mission in that we are not the principal combatants here. We are supporting those who are. We will be in proximity to the danger that they're in proximity to. We will be in a region that's contested and will suffer potentially the challenges that such a region offers. But Canada is not a principal combatant on the ground in this regard, and therefore it's a non-combat mission.
So it's not a combat mission because we're not the main combatant. That doesn't make any sense. Then again, it never made sense to me that the previous government, the Harper Conservatives, also refused to say what we were doing in Iraq was a combat mission. I mean, at times they even said that bombing the snot out of ISIS with our CF-18s was non-combat. I don't know why we are in such a pickle in trying to determine the language around this, but our leadership in Canada, be it political or military, is afraid to say that we are fighting ISIS. But make no mistake, that's what we're doing. It's what we were doing before today. It's what we'll continue to do. We can have a debate on whether the CF-18s should continue to be a part of it, and the General admitted that, well, it's not being done. We're not pulling out due to cost, and we're not pulling out because our allies asked us to. It is essentially a political decision. We can have a debate about that, but make no mistake that Canada is engaged in fighting a terrorist threat. The fact that we can't say that and say it clearly should be cause for concern. Without being able to name our enemy, we can't defeat our enemy. Without being able to say what we're doing to our enemy, do we have any hope of defeating them either? We need clear eyes, clear minds, and unfortunately, I'm not sure we have those when it comes to ISIS and Canadian politics.